Good morning, I'm Angelo Castro III.
I'm Angela, and we're the Castros.
We bring you the news.
And the views that make you think.
Sometimes we agree.
Sometimes we don't.
This is News and Views.
And here are today's headlines.
Two senators have proposed replacing Chinese Ambassador Jing Quan following a recent exchange of sharp words between senators and diplomats.
The preliminary conference on former Senator Bong Revilla's flood control graft case begins today.
Authorities have doubled their reward money for information on gambling tycoon Charlie Atong Ang.
Health experts are raising alarm over the growing number of younger Filipinos diagnosed with serious kidney disease.
Senator Rodante Marcoleta is setting conditions for a possible debate with former Supreme Court Associate Justice Antonio Carpio on the West Philippine Sea. Here's the report.
Senator Rodante Marcoleta has set his own conditions when he goes on a debate with former Supreme Court Associate Justice Antonio Carpio. That's over issues involving the West Philippine Sea. Earlier this week, Marcoleta challenged Carpio and other officials to a public discussion before accepting Philippine Coast Guard spokesperson J. Tariela's invitation. Tariela has offered the senator a domain awareness flight to the Kalayaan Islands in Palawan. In a social media post, Marcoleta said Carpio's proposal for a two-part agenda restricts the scope of the debate. Marcoleta wants no limits, as this will shortchange the people who deserve to see the complete picture of the WPS issue. Early this week, Justice Carpio set these parameters for the discourse.
I accepted the challenge to debate this topic. First, the first topic is there legally a West Philippine Sea? In other words, is it in our law that there is a West Philippine Sea? Because Marcoleta is saying there is no such thing as a West Philippine Sea. The second is, if there is a West Philippine Sea in our law, are the maritime zones of our islands in the Kalayaan Island Group part of the West Philippine Sea?
This comes after Marcoleta appeared to suggest giving up the Kalayaan Island Group, saying it was not within the country's exclusive economic zone.
Ano ba talaga ipagpapatayan natin dito? We will offer our lives, including the lives of our children, and to die for it, for something that is not even within our EEZ. Ang gawin natin po para madali, i-give up natin yung KIG.
He later on clarified he never meant surrendering the islands and that his statement was taken out of context. For News 5, Gerard de la Peña, We Are One News.
Meanwhile, Senator J.V. Ejercito has called for the replacement of China's ambassador to the Philippines, Jing Quan, amid a heated verbal exchange between Filipino lawmakers and Chinese diplomats. Ejercito said the ambassador's hostile approach, despite being in the country for less than 2 months, is worsening tensions rather than improving relations. He suggested a more diplomatic envoy could help ease the situation.
Instead of dousing cold water to the fire, he's adding fuel to the fire. So I think kung mas maganda, kung papalitan ng someone who is more diplomatic in dealing with the host country.
Senator Raffy Tulfo echoed Ejercito's concerns, describing the ambassador as overly sensitive and aggressive compared to his predecessors. Tulfo added that while he has no authority to recommend a replacement, appointing a new ambassador would serve the interests of both countries and improve bilateral relations.
Parang balat sibuyas, and agresibo siya sa kanyang mga aksyon. Yung kanyang reaction sa mga developments, sa mga nangyayari dito. I think, yeah, maybe, well, wala naman akong recommendatory power o wala akong authority para sabing palitan. Pero it will be best for the interest of the Chinese and Philippine relationship na siguro magkaroon ng bagong ambassador. It will help a lot.
Right, at this point, let's get the insights from Dr. Romel Banlawi, President of the Society for International Security Studies. Good morning.
Yes, God. Good morning to both of you. Good morning to everyone.
Yes, Doc. Thank you for joining us this
Angelo,
morning. Yeah. All right. Let's start off with the first point. How realistic do you think is the proposal, or how effective will it be to replace the new ambassador who just came in?
Well, it will not contribute to the the improvement of the current situation. Because if because the substantive issues have not been resolved. The key question here is not the representation of the ambassador, but the need for the two countries to rebuild confidence in order to find ways on how they can calm the situation in the South China Sea. There is a reason why the current ambassador was sent to the Philippines because they want to advance their national interest, and we also have the same reason to advance our national interest when it comes to the issue of the South China Sea. But I think the most important step now is for the two countries to rebuild confidence, in order to find ways on how they can manage their differences in the South China Sea.
Yeah, Doc, sabi ng, just
Go
to
ahead,
touch
go
up on that, sabi ng ibang lawmakers, while you are right, no, and I agree with you, na we have to find a common ground, no, para these things can be resolved peacefully. But sabi nila, how could that be achieved when you come in swinging in a home that you were invited to and talking against the owners of that home? Parang you don't see that daw with an envoy in China wouldn't do that, or an envoy or ambassador in the US wouldn't do that in the US. Parang wala daw respect or galang man lang before he says these things.
Well, exactly that's the thing that we need to assert. We need to assert mutual respect, And I have met the Chinese ambassador, and I can see in him the good intention to repair damaged political ties between the Philippines and China. And in fact, he is very much willing to open all channels of communication for the two parties to really talk. Okay? And I don't think a change of the ambassador will make a difference. You're only touching the surface. What we need is to address the fundamental issue that results in the deterioration of bilateral ties. And for me, the issue here is the lack of trust, the lack of mutual respect. And I think we can regain mutual trust and we can promote mutual respect by first conducting a confidence-building measure. What we need that is a confidence-building measure.
All right. But what can you say about the recent resolution passed by the Senate? No, yung nilalaman doon is yung kanilang kumbaga yung hindi nila pagsang-ayon,
Condemnation.
'di ba, doon sa mga actions in China against the government officials.
Well, that's okay for me. Because we are articulating our national position, we're articulating our national sentiment, and we have to make that known to not only to the Chinese ambassador but also to the Chinese government that we have this kind of position. But having said that, what's the next move on the part of both parties? It takes two to tango. Without an arrangement by the two parties to de-escalate their current situation, then we will face the same cycle again. So I have no problem with the Senate resolution, but I think because it's just an articulation of our national position. But what we need to examine is whether this Senate resolution can really make a difference. And apparently, it did. Yeah, because now, if you will listen to the various statements of the Chinese ambassador, especially his speech during the celebration of the Chinese New Year, he said he's willing to talk to the Philippine government, and he's willing to cooperate, and he's willing to address our differences, and he's willing to meet halfway, and he is willing to manage our differences. But of course, the taste of the pudding is in the eating. So we need to see whether he's truthful to what he's saying. So he needs to match what he's saying with his action. And what we need now is to really make a sincere move on the part of both parties to really talk. And I see positive signs because both parties are already making talks. You know, they already resumed the bilateral consultative mechanism in the South China Sea. They started talking about that in Cebu, and there's also another mechanism where the two parties can discuss their differences, the current negotiation of the code of conduct in the South China Sea. So I see positive signs.
Right.
So what we need now is to stop this exchange of harsh words against each other, because you're only hurting each other's national sensitivities. So stop this word war and start word peace.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But having said that, no, recently or yesterday, nagsabi rin itong Chinese ambassador to the Philippines, and I quote, no, let's sit down, let's talk. No, he said, my own reflections is that in recent times, we have not been meeting each other enough. Political dialogue has at times nearly come to a standstill. What do you have to say to that? Di ba parang lagi naman we were always extending our hand to talk to them?
Yes, talking is essential, and I think on the part of the Chinese embassy, they feel that the talking is not enough. So we need to accelerate talking. And for me, let us not be impatient about talking. Let us extend our patience when it comes to talking to China, because China has deep experiences in talking with all nations. You know, in my research about China's territorial disputes with other neighbors, China spent a lot of years talking to their neighbors just to make peaceful settlement of disputes. Especially when it comes to Chinese territories. For example, China took more than 400 years to Portugal in order to get Macau, and more than 250 years in talking with the Great Britain in order to regain Hong Kong. So China has this experiences in talking, and the Philippines should also exercise our patience in talking. And I would like to cite the example of our talks with Indonesia. Do you know that we also have maritime jurisdictional conflict with Indonesia in the Sulu Sea? But we're able to settle our maritime jurisdictional conflicts with Indonesia after 20 years of talking. Just imagine, Indonesia is not a problematic country for the Philippines. Indonesia is a friendly country for the Philippines, but it took us 20 years of talking. So we have to be prepared for a long talk in order to manage our differences.
But what's the best way to continue this dialogue with China without so much as continuing to affect our fishermen, of course, no? Kasi iba ang kaso.
Very good.
Kawawa naman ang mga fishermen natin. They bear the brunt
That's
of this
good.
conflict. So do you think may, Doc, may possibility na pwede tayo mag-sit down pero mag-pause muna tayo? Tigil muna natin yung hostilities?
That's right. In fact, we already had such kind of arrangement with China in 2019 when we entered into an agreement with China to pursue joint fishery management cooperation. Without surrendering our national positions and in respect of our own territorial claims, the both parties decided to establish a working group on joint fishery management cooperation in the West Philippine Sea, and we need to take stock of all the discussions on that aspect. And that was established during the bilateral consultative mechanism in the South China Sea. And not only that, both parties also decided to cooperate in the development of natural gas and oil. And they also decided to cooperate in the area of search and rescue cooperation. You know, during the time of the previous government of Duterte, there was a very strong Coast Guard to Coast Guard cooperation, and we need to revitalize that. We need to revive such kind of working arrangement between our two Coast Guards. And we also established working group on political and security cooperation in the South China Sea. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We already had initial achievements in the past where we can use to move forward. So for me, that's a priority. We need to revive discussion again on joint fishery management cooperation. And in fact, this year, I'll be launching my book. And I devoted one chapter on that book on the need for joint fishery management, and also wrote another chapter on the development of natural gas in oil, and also chapters on migration issues and even media cooperation. So what we need are these things, you know. So we people from the academy, we already have a lot of proposals on how the two parties can really cooperate rather than compete in the South China Sea. Unfortunately, some of our politicians are not privy with this kind of discussions. That's why I'm talking with some senators, I'm talking with some congressmen and some officials of the government, presenting to them my research to enlighten them about the availability of research in order to guide public policies. But I lament the fact that there are some elected politicians with vested interest, with political agenda, just using this to cover some important issues that we need to face in our country. But when it comes to peaceful approaches to manage our differences with China, we from the academy, we already have a lot of proposals, and we are making these proposals known to our officials so that it can inform the formulation of our policy.
Okay, quick follow-up lang before I turn you over to Angela and Doc. I think there was some head ground, there were some gains in the past with regards to yung joint fishing management, no? Mukhang for a while both sides were okay doing it, pero ang naging problema daw dito is with regards to sino magpapaalam kay Nino. Kasi ang stand ng Philippines, kayo magpaalam sa amin. Ang stand ng China, no, kayo magpaalam sa amin. So both countries were not willing to budge on that issue because we were both standing up for our kung ano yung belief natin at that point. How do you move on with this fishing management issue and mechanisms and rules pwede ba itabi muna paalam ka sa akin, paalam ako sa iyo? Can we remove that muna and say, okay, sabay-sabay na lang muna tayo mag-fishing, tsaka na tayo magpaalamanan, basta maayos ang usapan?
Well, the devil is in the details. So when it comes to the details, both parties need to talk more on how to establish arrangements on how to pursue with joint fishery management. The question here, kasi there's a definitional problem. In international law, when you want to do something in the disputed area, there's a concept of prior notification. So doon nagkakatalo, akala kasi from the perspective of the Philippines, magpapaalam tayo sa kanila. Pero it's just it's like a respect, prior notification that we are doing this kind of activities. So I think they can sort that out if they continue talking about the details on how they can implement that. You know, so yung mga differences na yon should not prevent the two parties to continue cooperating. Kasi problema, pag nagkaroon tayo ng minor issues just like that, we want to stop the process. No. While we are sorting out things, we should continue the cooperative activities. So, but of course, if China decides to stop us from our fishing activities, that's not appropriate. So we have to find ways where both fishermen, with all fishermen in that area, can enjoy their traditional fishing activities, because even the International Arbitration Tribunal declared the South China Sea and West Philippine Sea, especially the waters around the Scarborough Shoal, is a traditional fishing ground of user states, not only Chinese and Filipinos, but other user states.
Well, siyempre, tayo on our part naman, just to be fair, we're just asserting our rights based on dun sa tribunal ruling, di ba? That it is within our exclusive economic zone. So, bakit kami magpapaalam? But what do you suggest we should do?
Kasi nga dito, Angela, the problem is China has big claims also. So yun nga, there's a maritime jurisdictional conflict. It's okay if there is no problem. Like for example, the exclusive economic zone in the Benham Rice. No one is challenging our position on that. So we don't need to ask everyone for our fishing activities in the 200 nautical miles exclusive economic zone in the Benham Rights facing the East Philippine Sea. But when it comes to the West Philippine Sea, there's a problem because it is challenged by other parties, not only China, but also Vietnam, Malaysia, to a certain extent Taiwan, and then Brunei, and going back even down south, the Natuna Island is in Indonesia. So, kasi there is a maritime jurisdictional problem. There is overlapping claims to exclusive economic zone, and we need to settle these overlapping claims to exclusive economic zone.
Well, what do you suggest we should do na kahit na po tayo ay nakikipag-usap naman, at the same time, continuous pa rin naman po yung harassment na nangyayari, especially sa mga fishermen natin doon sa area na yon?
That's why we need to discuss that in the bilateral consultative mechanism in the South China Sea for all parties to exercise self-restraint, okay, and implement the principle of United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea for all parties to fulfill their responsibility to cooperate. Remember, under UNCLOS, cooperation is not a moral suasion. Cooperation is a duty. Cooperation is a responsibility. And in order to pursue cooperation, UNCLOS also requires two parties to do two other things. One is to exercise self-restraint in the conduct of unilateral activities, and apparently all these China's actions against us are unilateral actions, and China also regards our actions in the West Philippine Sea as unilateral actions. We need to exercise self-restraint in the conduct of unilateral activities that are considered to be hostile by other parties. And at the same time, we have to pursue this concept of due regard, meaning we have to take into account that other parties also have their own national positions. Okay, like the Philippines, we also have our national position, so we need to pay due regard also. And according to UNCLOS, with the principle of self-restraint and due regard, then the two parties can fulfill their obligation to cooperate, and that is the thing that should guide not only the Philippines and China, but also other parties. In fact, it's working between it's working between the Philippines and Vietnam. Okay, we have arrangement with Vietnam already. It's also working with the Philippines and Malaysia. It's working. We have an arrangement with Malaysia, and not only in the South China Sea, but also in Sabah. You know, so it's working. Now the question is, if it's working so far with Malaysia and Indonesia, why we cannot make it work with China? So that begs the question, because China is a big elephant in the room, big elephant in the room, and China's action in the South China Sea is not only perceived in the context of the South China Sea dispute, but also perceived in the context of U.S.-China major power rivalry, and that complicates the situation because the Philippines is an ally of the United States. So, maraming factors on why we are facing this kind of situation, why we find ourselves in this kind of difficult situation in the South China Sea.
Right, but lastly, Doc, ASEAN Summit is going to take place next year. Tayo po ang magiging host. Do you think there's going to be a meaningful role itong ASEAN Summit to de-escalate the tension between the Philippines and China?
Yeah, in fact, we are given the historic role in ASEAN because all parties involved in the discussion in the South China Sea, they decided to conclude the negotiations where the Philippines is a chair of the ASEAN. So they have a target. So they have a target to conclude the negotiation of the Code of Conduct in the South China Sea. And I'm happy to see that all parties in the negotiations already have achieved one common decision that if they conclude the Code of Conduct in the South China Sea, this code must be legally binding and substantive and in accordance with international law, particularly the United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea. But there are other details that they still need to thresh out, and I hope under the Philippine chairmanship, all parties concerned, China and ASEAN, will be able to thresh out all these small differences, okay, in order to really conclude and come out with a code of conduct in the South China Sea. But I need to make this caveat, Angela and Angelo, a caveat. The Code of Conduct in the South China Sea has no pretension to settle territorial disputes. It has no pretension to settle maritime jurisdictional conflict. But the Code of Conduct in the South China Sea can enable the peaceful settlement in this dispute and peaceful settlement of maritime jurisdictional conflict by encouraging all parties to uphold a law that will promote a good order at sea. Kasi ang tingin ng iba kasi akala nila pag may Code of Conduct the South China Sea na mapipeacefully resolve na yung territorial disputes. No. But it only wants to create a conducive environment for all parties to cooperate so that they can settle the disputes peacefully eventually.
But I remember former Justice Carpio said in one of his interviews na Code of Conduct COC is dead in the water already. For him.
We respect his opinion, but as we see in the current negotiations, there is a intention on the part of all parties concerned to really come out with a Code of Conduct. So there are several meetings for that, and as we speak now, there are working groups meeting in the area of geographic scope, and in the area of activities to be covered by the Code of Conduct, and even identifying all areas where parties can really cooperate. And most importantly, they are also now discussing, and there's another working group discussing the role of other user states on how they can comply with the Code of Conduct. So there are a lot of working groups meeting now in order to accelerate the conclusion of the Code of Conduct in the South China Sea. And I'm privy to these discussions because I'm closely monitoring the situation for the past 20 years.
Yeah. Ang tagal na niyan eh.
Tagal
Alright.
na ito.
Sige
Pero
po.
I'm not losing my patience. I'm not losing my patience. But before we leave Angela and Angelo, I would like to take advantage of this situation to clarify yung issues ngayon na bumabagabag ngayon sa sinabi ni Senator Marcoleta na ibigay
I-give
na
up
yung
ang
KIG.
KIG.
Kasi maraming inaccuracies kasi na dinidiscuss ngayon ng ating mga legislators when it comes to the issue of the Calayan Island Group. Remember, the Calayan Island Group is a group of islands with 54 land features.
Right.
Hindi lahat, 80% ng land features ng Calayan Island Group belong to our exclusive economic zone. And only 80% is outside of our exclusive economic zone. Kaya hindi mo pwedeng i-give up yan.
Right.
Pero nonetheless, ang issue dito sa Calayan Island Group is not only an issue of maritime rights. Per Presidential Decree 1596, signed in 1978, we declared all land features within the Calayan Island Group as an inherent part of our national territory. So we cannot, yes, and we cannot give that up. And although Pag-asa Island, which is the bone of contention, is outside of our exclusive economic zone, we declared that as part of our territory, and we have already established our effective control, effective administration, and effective occupation of Pag-asa Island.
Ayun. Alright, but he said on his defense, he was taken out of context. Hindi naman daw yun na ibig niyang sabihin.
Yun nga,
Alright, sige po.
Buti naman na-clarify niya na he was taken out of context. Now, I'm providing the right context on the Calayan Island Group.
Right.
And ito pa nga, the Calayan Island Group, siguro sa mga discussions natin, let's discuss the details of that. It's really contested because Calayan Island Group is also being challenged not only by China but also by Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, and Taiwan.
Sige po, sa susunod po ninyo, kung may oras pa po kayo, pag-usapan po natin yan. But for the meantime, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras. As always, Dr. Romel Banlawi, President of the Society for International Security Studies. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Angela and Angelo.
Thank
God
you.
bless you both.
Mabilis lang na yung point out lang, yung sinasabi na tama si Doc if you can have peaceful relations with Vietnam and the other claimants, bakit hindi China? Well, sabi ng ibang luminaries, ang China lang naman ang nag-water cannon. You don't see Vietnam or the other claimants na pag nagkakaroon ng confrontation and nag-radio challenge, but you don't see them water cannoning our people, and we don't water cannon
fishermen.
Our fishermen. But China, a big Coast Guard ship, water cannons a small motor bangka. So how can you expect to talk to somebody na let's talk, pero nakikita mo yung farmer, yung fisherman mo,
walang kalaban-laban.
Walang kalaban-laban. All right, Senator Sherwin Gatchalian is pushing for reforms to strengthen the licensure examination for teachers and ensure higher professional standards. The details in this report by Mobile Journal, Merimon Reyes.
Reforms on the licensure examination for teachers is being pushed by Senator Sherwin Gatchalian. His Senate Bill number 52 seeks to amend the Philippine Teachers Professionalization Act of 1994, expanding the membership of the Board for Professional Teachers, in which recommendations were raised in yesterday's hearing of the Senate Committee on Civil Service. This includes attaining master's at the minimum or doctorate degrees as criteria to be part of the board, the nomination of board members being done by institutions, and having a representative from the indigenous people.
A representative in the technical panel or in the board will ensure that test items for teacher deployed to ancestral domains are culturally sensitive and that the portfolio assessment instruments respect traditional cultural expressions and communal intellectual rights.
We only recommend strongly that PRC be very, very clear as to how they actually accredit professional organizations, because as we speak now, wala po tayong accredited professional organization. So part of this redirection is to clarify within PRC paano ba mag-accredit ng professional organization, sino ba ito dapat.
The bill authorizes the Professional Regulation Commission or PRC in coordination with the Teacher Education Council to prescribe the examination scope and its corresponding qualifications. This, with an even stricter rule, those who do not pass the licensure exam twice are required to take refresher courses. And to ensure the readiness of upcoming teachers, the proposed measure will also require applicants to submit a portfolio showing their adherence to professional teaching standards. The bill also introduces separate exams for special needs and early childhood education on top of those administered for elementary and secondary levels.
Hanggang ngayon po, ongoing ang mga trainings namin on National Early Learning Curriculum, infant and toddlers early development. So marami po kaming binibigay na training. So they're asking our teachers kung pwede daw bang i-accredit ng PRC as CPD units yung kanilang mga trainings na binibigay po ng council.
However, the committee also raised the concern. What for are the efforts on the professionalization of teachers if there are teacher education institutions who are not serving quality mentorship to budding educators? Erickson Reyes of the Commission on Higher Education reports that based on their recent monitoring, 397 programs from private and public institutions are recommended for phase-out. Students affected will be allowed for transferring to other institutions recognized or accredited by CHED.
Doon sa CMO or guidelines na inisyu namin previously, part of the filter is kailangan may valid COPC. Pag below 50% yung average na for the past 3 years, they will be prioritized for monitoring. And upon monitoring, tapos non-compliant sila, then they will be subjected po for a sanction, which could lead to closure of the program.
Yeah, but ang concern ko, meron talagang institutions. Ni isa hindi pumapasa eh. Zero passer. Kawawa yung estudyante.
Yes,
There must be sanctions or else kung wala.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Tuloy-tuloy lang sila. Pag private kasi, much worse because they pay tuition fee. If it's public, it's also worse because we give them budget.
The full list of underperforming institutions will be given to the Senate, as well as the actions taken with the matter at hand, and the technical working group will be held on February 18, tackling the amendments to the Teachers Professionalization Act. Kapatid Mobile journalist Merimon Reyes, we are One News.
The Sandigan Bayan 4th Division is set to begin today the preliminary conference in the graft case against former Senator Bong Revilla and others accused. For the details, we have Mobile Journal Arles de los Santos joining us live from Quezon City. Arles, go ahead.
Angela at Diego, dumating nga dito kanina lamang sina Bulacan, ang dating mga opisyal ng Bulacan 1st District Engineering Office na sina Bryce Hernandez, JP Mendoza, RJ Dumasig at Juanito Mendoza para nga sa preliminary conference ng kanilang kasong graft sa 4th Division ng Sandigan Bayan. So ibig sabihin, itong preliminary conference na ito, no, ito yung initial at early stage ng court meeting sa pagitan ng prosekusyon, ng korte at ng defense, no, kung saan magkakaroon sila ng pagkakataon na ilatag ng mas maayos ang kanilang mga claim, no, ang kanilang mga depensa at kanilang mga ebidensya kaugnay sa mga kasong kinaharap ng kanilang mga kliyente. Kung saan nga hindi dumating dito si dating Senador Bong Revilla dahil nagbigay na daw ito ng special power of attorney o parang yung ng isang papel, no, para katawanin na siya dito nga sa pagharap, no? Kaya naman din na kinailangan na pumunta dito pa mismo ngayong araw at yung mga kapwa-akusado na lamang na sila Hernandez, Dumasig at sa pang Hernandez at sila Mendoza yung dumating dito kanina. Siyempre kasama pa rin nila yung nilang mga abogado. Kabukod dyan, nakaset naman yung kanilang pre-trial no, sa February 19. Pero bago ang lahat, ay narinig natin kanina doon sa loob na nagdagdaga ng dalawang bagong witness no o testigo itong si Revilla at ayan nga ay sina Hernandez at si Mendoza, no, yung dalawang engineer na kasama rin doon sa mga nauna ng investigasyon ng flood control scandal at kaugnay din, sila din ang mga co-accused ni Revilla dito sa kaso na ito.
Well, Arles, what was his complaint yesterday regarding the two other accused na sinasabi niya na ina-accuse siya tapos itong dalawa ay for witness protection program. Can you tell us more about it?
That's at least yung proseso ng pag-apply kasi sa Witness Protection Program, Angela. No? Kasama itong dalawa, sina Mendoza and then si Hernandez doon sa mga nag-apply. Pero hindi kasi sila nakasama doon sa listahan. Pero may mga balita at nakita doon sa papel mismo na yung kanilang mga pahayag, yung mga salaysay na ipinasa doon sa kanilang aplikasyon ay ginamit daw yung portion doon para nga makapagsampa ng mga kaso sa iba pang mga individual na nauugnay dito sa flood control scam na ito. Pero mahaba-haba pa yung usapan para dyan dahil sa ngayon yung kanilang pre-trial ay para doon pa lamang sa isa sa mga kaso na kanilang kinaharap dito sa Sandigan Bayan, which is yung grab case nila. At ngayong araw nga ay wala si Revilla dito mismo. Represented lamang siya ng kanyang counsel, of course.
Alright, maraming salamat, Mobile Journal Arles de los Santos. We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning. You're still watching News and Views here on One News. Health experts are raising concern over younger Filipinos being diagnosed with serious kidney disease. Data from the Department of Health show that in 2025, more than 600 Filipinos aged 20 and below were already suffering from stage 5 chronic kidney disease. Experts say this is alarming because at their age, the condition is supposedly preventable and not commonly seen. Specialists warn that chronic kidney disease often shows no symptoms until it becomes severe.
Magugulat na lang tayo dahil ang dami talagang pasyenteng pumupunta sa clinic, sa ER, na-admit na 20 years old, minsan mas bata pa. Talagang nakaka-alarma ngayon na pabata ang naaapektuhan ng kidney disease. Kasi sa totoo lang, preventable supposedly ang kidney disease.
Joining us now is Dr. Joseph Lee, Chairman of the Section of Urology and Stone Center at FUMC. Good morning, Doc Joseph.
Thanks for joining us again.
Yes, good morning, Diego and Angela, and advance Valentine's Day.
Yes. Oo, pahinga muna ang kidney daw sa Valentine's Day, Doc.
Oo.
Alright, Doc, medyo na-alarma ako sa nakita ko on the report na young children nasa stage 5 of kidney disease, no? How did this happen?
You're talking about early onset or even the pediatric age groups. There is a advance or increase in the data census of pediatric age group. This could be one attributed to the congenital anatomical structure. What does it mean, Diego, Angela? Meaning the patient in the beginning could have problems with the structure in the urogenital anatomy. You can have vesico-ureteral junction, obstruction, strictures, no? Those can attribute later on to the destruction of your kidney per se because of the long-standing reflux of the urine or the renal tubules are constantly being disrupted, no? This can be said in the context of because not that we are not aware, probably parents are not conscious that their children are having such complaints until such time there are
Severe.
symptoms.
Oh,
So what are the symptoms, di ba? Angel, Diego, these are constant urinary infection, urinary retention, lower back pains, which is not commonly told by the children or adolescents, and lower umbilical pain.
Oo. Pero Doc, what are the common causes of kidney disease among younger patients today? Is it because today, no, we live in a world na everything is instant. No? Pagdating sa pagkain, instant noodles, instant meat, instant
Chips.
lahat, chips, etc.
One thing that we can attribute, Angel, is early onset of diabetes and hypertension. Diba? We have problems with processed foods and very fast food, or foods that are not readily cooked in our household, but we see it in restaurants. But because the elements or the ingredients of how the foods are made might not be good for the kidney in itself, especially those that are processed. Or yung mga burger houses, di ba?
Oo,
Lagi
that's
natin
why-
sinasabi. Right. Then, the fact that you have already a family history of diabetes, hypertension. That's why we also find kids with early onset of pre-diabetes and pre-hypertension. So these are very, very strong indicators of metabolic syndromes, which can occur earlier in childhood that can later on cause chronic kidney disease.
So, kumbaga kung ang parents mo merong diabetes, ganun, ikaw yung susceptible ka magkaroon ng chronic disease, ganun ba yun?
Unless the risk factor, Angel, keeps on bombarding the adolescents. When I say risk factor, the parents can be diabetic. Both of them or one of the parents can be diabetic. But of course, there is a risk already. There is a risk already of probably, kasi we cannot predict eh. Sasabihin mo, oy, baka yung anak ko meron CKD or will undergo CKD or have diabetes. Hindi natin alam. But when I say the risk, so yung lifestyle mo continuously is not checked or regularly attended
Monitored.
into, you might lead to what we are afraid of.
Tapos,
diba?
to add to it pa, Doc Joseph, yung sinasabi mo, predisposed ka pa to other issues. So, nag-compound together.
Yes, the word is predisposed, risk factors, and unmonitored. When you say unmonitored, Angel, alam mo na, hindi mo na monitored, may symptoms, ayan, lalala na siya.
Doc, ang tanong ko rin dito, ang prevalent ngayon sa mga, you mentioned, mga pagkain, fast food, products in the supermarket, most of them, kung titignan mo yung label, ang common denominator, aside from sugar, is the presence of sodium, not only as a flavor enhancer, but as a preservative. Because sodium is widely used to preserve several items. Does this contribute, Doc, also to this new generation? Aga pa lang kung ano-anong issue na. Sodium causes hypertension problems also.
You're correct, no, Diego? Kasi of course, one of the things that we monitor for our your kidney is not only your creatinine but your GFR, your glomerular filtration rate, no? For children kasi, it should be less than 90 mg per ml, 'di ba? For adults kasi, we count it as 90 to 120. What is that? What is GFR? That is the functional capacity of your kidney. So when you say kidney, you have the right and the left, bilateral. So at least kailangan balance na. So how does it change the paradigm of the function? So pag meron mga shift, like say sabi mo sodium, 'di ba? So you'll end up having what? Hypernatremic. Ibig sabihin mataas ang sodium mo, so you'll attract more water. So when you attract more water, what is the water? They can contain exotoxin coming from the kidney. Or talking about the kidney, kasi the exchange of toxins are happening in the tubules of the kidney. So pag meron dumi dyan, baka masak up yan, and you can later on cause what? Edema. edema or bipedal edema or later on puffiness, 'di ba nakikita mo?
Yeah.
That's a very very common presentation, especially for our patients who are undergoing dialysis. Puffiness of the eyes and edematous of the bilateral extremities. Yun ang tama ka diyan. Sodium unbalance. Tapos constantly, alam mo, Angel, nasisira, nabombard ang tubules natin, you'll end up early onset of chronic kidney disease.
So for layman's term, Doc, anong gagawin ng mga magulang para yung mga anak nila would not end up in the hospital because of this chronic kidney disease?
Una, 'di ba, uminom tubig, hydration. Yan lang naman ang nutrient ng kidney, 'di ba?
Right.
Pangalawa, paano natin mapipigilan? Bibigyan mo ng baon. Mama, I want baon. Ayoko ng cooked food. Di ba? They all go to the fast food restaurant. So I think that the discipline will probably start in your household on how you will discipline your child. Di ba? Kasi minsan, tayo, di ba, Diego, I think you believe, no, Angel, sige, ayaw niya kumain, sige na, pabigyan mo na ng hamburger, hamburger dito, hamburger dito. Para minsan, feeling mo, isang linggo nag-hamburger. We don't blame the hamburger, we're not putting brands. Pero these are some of the fast foods that can cause problems. And besides that, marami pa dyan, di ba?
I was wondering, Doc, kung pati puyat would also trigger chronic kidney disease because I remember, sabi nga ng mga doktor, katulad mo, Doc, kapag natutulog ka, doon nag-regenerate yung body mo eh. Diba? So kung ikaw ay puyat, it causes also that. Tama po ba?
Yes. Ang puyat kasi or lack of sleep, Angel, Diego, it prevents the organs to recalibrate or rechannel. 'Di ba? Parang isipin mo, pag tulog ka, yung organ mo has a system or parang yung mga tubules will say, ano ayusin natin? Ito parang excess tayo. Tomorrow magtatrabaho tayo ulit ha. Kailangan wala na yan. Pag puyat ka, parang walang chance parang mag-rechannel or recalibrate yung kidneys mo. Trabaho na naman. Ganon, alam mo yun? Parang so and when your substance or your toxins are coming in very strongly paulit-ulit, masisira ang tubules mo. When I say tubules, you have millions and millions of renal tubules in the kidney. So when they're destroyed, they're partly and partial will affect and cause chronic renal or chronic kidney disease.
Lastly, Doc, mabilis na lang po, meron po ba mga routine test na dapat gawin sa mga bata na kahit kasi dun sa balita natin, sinasabi nga na hindi natin malalaman until it's severe already. So, para ma-monitor yung kidneys nila.
One is very, very common, di ba? Common sabi natin pag bata. Pag very recurrent ang infection niya or UTI. Sa bata, very common yan. Very, that's one alarming factor. So, you have to be very conscious of that. Of course, you have to do blood exams. Tama ka, Angel. Hindi man lagi natin pinapakreatinine yan, pag GFR yan, di ba? Those are a bit of specialized examination. Now, ang una mong target, UTI, but paulit-ulit? No? Notwithstanding infection. Then pa-ultrasound mo, tingnan mo, baka may parenchymal changes. When you talk about parenchymal changes, this is the thickness of the kidney. When your parenchyma starts to be thinner, that would be a problem and that would be a starting point for chronic kidney disease.
Alright, sige. As always, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras. Dr. Joseph Lee, Chairman of the Section of Urology and Stone Center at FUMC. Thank you so much for joining us again.
Morning.
Morning.
Don't go away because we're not done yet. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching News and Views here on One News. Now, with only just a day before Valentine's, crowds have started to flock to Dangwa Flower Market in Manila. Let's check the situation on the ground with Mobile Journal Francis Rivera. Francis, go ahead.
Diego, Angela, tuloy-tuloy pa rin yung pagdagsa ng mga kapatid natin para nga mamili ng mga bulaklak dito sa Dangwa at yung mga presyo nag-vary doon sa mga shop na nandito. Pero in general, ang mga presyo ng mga assorted bouquet naglalaro sa 1,000 to 6,500. Yun na yung pinakamahal na natanungan natin. Ilan daw kasi yun sa mga kunti 5 set ng bulaklak kasi ang mga nandoon sa bouquet na yon. So meron din mga sunlight na naglalaro sa 150 per pieces. Yung carnation naman naglalaro ng 900 pesos. 20 pieces na raw yan. Sa gerbera naman 400 pesos at 10 pieces. At ang mga local rose na mga binibenta dito ay naglalaro sa 150 pesos at yung mga bouquet naman ng local rose ay naglalaro sa 130 pesos. Ganon din yung mga China rose at 250 pesos per pieces. Pero kapag bundle o yung 10 pieces ay nasa 2,500 ang presyo niyan. Sa mga tulips naman 1,000 pesos per piece ang mga presyo na nandito at yung mga dried flowers ay naglalaro sa 800 pesos ang isang bouquet. Meron din mga misty na 100 pesos per pieces pero 1,600 pesos naman ang bundle. Sa labor naman naglalaro yan sa 300 pesos to 500 pesos do sa mga florist na naandito na sila rin yung gumagawa ng mga bouquet. So kung may mga gusto kayong i-personalize o may mga gusto kayong i-add dun sa mga bouquet ninyo, pwedeng-pwede nyo naman ipagawa yan dito sa mga florist na sa bawat shop na naandito sa Dangwa.
Probably, perhaps, JF, baka pwede mong iikot na lang kami dyan sa surrounding mo para makita namin yung whole picture of what's truly happening there in Dangwa.
Okay. Angela, ito. Actually, bahagyang may pagbigat naman na yung traffic dito banda sa may itong Dos Cañas, no? Itong side na ito ay medyo mabigat na yung daloy ng traffic. At dito pagpasok natin talagang makikita nyo na halos siksikan na at medyo marami na yung tao. So,
okay.
Kaliwat kanan naman yung shop na andito. So pagpasok nyo naman may mga nag-aalok naman sa inyo dito. So hindi na rin kayo mahirapan mamili or maghanap ng mga shop o mga flower na inyong bibilin dahil sila na mismo yung lalapit at sila na mismo yung nag-aalok ng mga
Okay. Alright, nahirapan na ng signal si Francis.
Alright, thank you for that mobile journal. Francis Rivera reporting from Dangwa, Manila.
Now, the Philippine Animal Welfare Society kicked off its first date event, inviting the public to spend time with rescued dogs and cats. Mobile journalist Daniel Dayaw has the report.
This Valentine's Day, the most charming date don't come with roses. They come with paws, whiskers, and a second chance at love. The Philippine Animal Welfare Society offers Forever Home at the center of Love Month. Instead of candlelit dinners and bouquets, Paw celebrates love a little different. A first date with rescued dogs and cats. From February 12 to 14, animal lovers signed up to spend time face-to-face with shelter animals. Walking, playing, and in some cases, just sitting quietly together.
We wanted to ride on the popularity of Valentine's as, a dating season. And it's very hard to get people to come to an animal shelter and visit a rescued dog or rescued cat.
But behind the cute photos and cuddles is a much bigger purpose. Executive Director of PAWS, Attorney Ana Cabrera, emphasized that in the Philippines, breed and buy remains the norm, even as an estimated over 12 million stray cats and dogs continue to roam the streets.
This Valentine's Day event is to encourage people to adopt instead of buying a pet. If you're looking for love, you can find it at the shelter.
Instead of speed dating, PAWS invites the public to try an organic encounter, where Filipinos find four-legged love by simply visiting Animal Rescue Center.
We're very overwhelmed na fully booked na for the 3 days. They can still sponsor yung mga hindi na-date because we have some dogs and cats na under rehabilitation pa.
And for many of the first daters, the experience hits close to the heart.
I lost my wife recently. Just last month, I lost her. So, we both love dogs and cats. We have 2 dogs at home. And I said, what better way to spend Valentine's than spending time with creatures of God that she also really loved. So that's it.
It's for a friend who passed away because gustong-gusto niya yung mga dogs and she wanted to have a dog shelter. And when I saw this sa post, sabi ko, wow, what a way to celebrate Valentine's Day.
May it be for love, healing, or curiosity, this event proves that love can start in the most unexpected places. Sometimes it starts at the shelter.
In seasons of hearts and flowers, compassion may just be the most meaningful date of all. Kapatid Mobile Journal Daniel Dayaw, we are One News.
Ang cute naman. Spending time with our fur babies. Happy Valentine's, ha?
Happy Valentine's. Sa kapula ng hako, di ba?
Happy Valentine's.
And we also remember our dear family fur, si Yoda.
Oh, happy Valentine's kay Yoda in heaven. Correct. And before we let you go, I'd like to leave everyone with a quote. Love is the quiet strength that keeps hearts connected. And that wraps up today's episode of News and Views.
Join us again on Monday. I'm Angela Castro.
I'm Angelo Castro III. Kapatid, we are One News.
All sides, all the time.